I'm content creator Cori Walmsley. I empower women entrepreneurs by sharing book writing and publishing solutions on my show, Page Turner's Studio with Cori. Hi, I'm Cori Walmsley. I'm your host, and I'm also the CEO of Aurora Borealis Publishing, where we work with coaches and speakers to help get their message out to more people and make an impact. I'm also the writing coach at Aurora Borealis, as well as an award-winning author of 10 books. So you are in the right place if you'd like to learn how to take intentional action with corporate coach and trainer Desiree Petrich. And I'm very excited to bring her on today because she is one of our authors. So I had the pleasure of working with her for the last few months, and her book just launched on May 21st. So it's brand new. It's like the freshest book ever. So you'll have to check that out. First, real quick, before we get started, my newest book, The Treasures We Seek, just came out this past fall. It's about a woman overcoming the challenges in her life so she can become the next best version of herself. It's a fun trip to Italy with her best friend, and they learn lots of things about themselves while they're over there, as well as digging into the history of the area. So it's pretty cool. You'll want to check that out when you need something to read this summer. Plus, you can get it at the link there. But also, I know if you're listening to this show, then you have tons of ideas and you probably want to write a book. So make sure you grab one of these beautiful journals that we have from Aurora Borealis Publishing. They're 200 pages. They're really small, so you can just throw that in your car or your purse, take it with you wherever you go, so you can jot down your fabulous ideas. So let me introduce you to Desiree. She is an author, speaker, corporate coach, and trainer, and the host of the Lead with Confidence podcast, which I've been listening to recently and is a fantastic show. She founded her company Intentional Action in 2022 after losing her mom unexpectedly 2 months after her son left the NICU. And she has a really interesting story around that she actually talks about in her book, too. So let me bring her up from the green room. Welcome, Desiree. Hi.
Hey, Cori, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. I'm very excited to talk about your book.
Yeah, me too. And I just, to anyone who is interested in working with Cori, do it. Stop asking questions, just do it. She's amazing.
Oh, thank you. I really enjoyed working with you on this book. I think this is a fantastic read. I've said it several times already. This is one of the best leadership books I've read because it's approachable and it's real, and it doesn't feel like somebody standing up on a pedestal somewhere saying you should do this so you can be successful. You're a real person, and I really identified with a lot of what you talk about in the book.
Thank you so much. Every time you say that, a little bit of imposter syndrome pops up, but I'm so thankful and I'm so glad that you enjoyed it and that I've had so much positive feedback so far. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I always love reading the positive feedback too. I love looking at the Amazon reviews and everything. And anyway, before we get down that rabbit hole, I do want to talk about this fantastic book. This is Taking Intentional Action. And since we are so close to the launch of the book, I know it just launched on the 21st. We don't have a copy of the book in hand yet, but we have this beautiful cover up here, courtesy of Karen Kapteline. We love working with her on our covers. So tell me a little bit about why you decided to write this book and who you wanted to impact with it.
I wrote this book after being able to say that nothing bad had ever happened to me, going from that to everything that could have possibly happened that was not good happened in like 2 years. COVID, I was managing a dementia facility during that time. I realized when the pandemic hit that I had no idea how to manage a dementia facility through COVID. And so I had to do a lot of growing up really quickly. A lot of personal development and leadership book was happening. A lot of that development and growing up was happening in a very short amount of time. And after I chose to leave there, I had my son during a blizzard on 2/22/22, which is not relevant to the story, but it's such a fun fact. And he was in the NICU for a month due to complications with his birth. And 24 hours after we got home, my mom had a stroke. So there was just a lot that happened very quickly. And I had to be able to navigate it with the tools that I had. And I was just so thankful that for years leading up to that, I had been reading personal development and leadership and kind of preparing myself in a way for the things that were going to happen. And they were all out of my control, but there were certain things in my control. And that's what this book is. It's taking control of the things that you can control.
I love that, and I think that's such an important lesson for all of us in life, and I feel like we all end up learning that, like, a really hard way that we and you I don't wanna say you lucked out, but you were in a position where you had been able to kind of build this foundation that we talk about in the book a little bit, when you discuss the foundation of self, so you did have tools in your toolbox where a lot of people just, get slammed with these things and they're like, "I don't know what to do. I don't know how to handle this," and then the emotions and everything are all over the place instead of us being able to say, all right, this happened, this is what I'm going to do next, and I do have some control over my life. So um, I'm going to quit rambling. Keep talking about your book. I want to share the impactful page turner share. The answer to any question you have is in a book somewhere. Yes, you just have to find the right one. I believe the right book will find you at the right time if you're asking the right questions. So tell me about this one.
Well, like I said, I read personal development and leadership out of necessity. I truly started with the one that everyone recommended. The book that everyone recommended, I don't remember what it was at the time, but it was like one book after the other, whether I was searching on Amazon and I put in how to do this, or I buy books all the time. And when I'm looking for the next book to read, it's like one calls to me. And I promise you that if you are willing to read the book and find the lessons within, you could read a book 100 times and find 100 different lessons in it because they speak to the person that you are in that moment. They speak to the lesson that you need to learn, and they speak to the thing that you're willing to listen to. Because when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And in my opinion, that teacher is often the author who took the time to write a book to share with you the lessons that they've learned. And that's what I hope to do with my book, is that hopefully it will provide the answers that someone needs to hear in the moment.
Yeah. I love that. And I do think it's interesting that we can go back and look at a book, a couple years later, and we get something completely different out of it. I've noticed that myself that I will read something and then I'll decide, okay, I really feel drawn to this again. I'll go in and read it, and it's a completely different mountain to climb, completely
Mhm.
different. So I love that you shared that. Thank you. I want to share your being a page turner tip. Transcribe your notes. Everything I've highlighted in the hundreds of books I've read goes into a document. Whenever I'm feeling uninspired, I read through all my notes, and inevitably there's a nugget of wisdom. So tell me about this one, because I know this was something that I found fascinating that you are that involved in your reading.
I don't know if it's like a trick that I have, that I happen to remember the title and the author of almost every book that I've read, personal development wise, not necessarily fiction. But I think it's because I don't want to forget things. People have asked me, like, why would you read so much? There's no way that you can retain all of that information. And I said, yeah, but that's not the point. It's the process of
Mhm,
reading the book that is going to help you to grow. But every once in a while, there are quotes and nuggets and tricks and tools that you can use that will affect you for the rest of your life if you choose to implement them. And
mhm,
so I actually have it right here. I call it my diamond notes. This happened to be a notebook that I bought when I went on a trip with my mom. And in it are just the quotes and the titles and the page numbers of things that I have learned that I don't want to forget.
mhm.
And it turns out, though, here's another tip. Can I give one more tip?
Oh, yeah.
If
Yeah,
you
please
plan
do.
on writing a book someday, write down the page number, write down the author and the exact quote, because I had to unfortunately take out several quotes from my book that I really wanted to use because this book is from 6, 7 years worth of taking notes and I didn't know what information I would need. So make
Yeah.
sure that if you do take notes and you transcribe them into something so that you can be inspired by them, you also take detailed notes on the rest of it.
And to add to that, the reason why we do that is because you have to cite anything that you're quoting in your book, just for ethical purposes and sometimes to keep your butt out of, a lawsuit. So
Yes.
we always make sure that we do everything we can. And I imagine most publishers do the same, where they say, please make sure you've cited this. You don't want to get in trouble. Please make sure you cited this. And if it's something that is from a book, like Desiree was citing a lot of books in hers, you have to make sure that it's an exact quote or that you're paraphrasing and then saying, by the way, it came from this book. If you are giving just general knowledge, things that most people would know, and you're paraphrasing, then you don't have to quote it. So just some extra tips for you guys.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I want to share the turn the page with Cori tip. Be open to trusting your gut as well as people who have been there. And I thought this was a great tip for you because you read so much, but then you are also really good about trusting your intuition on things. So how has this shown up in your life? How do you balance those things out?
Well, the funny thing is the fact that you think that about me is amazing because I always say I'm kind of naive because I trust people so deeply. I'm of the true belief that you have to give trust and then someone can earn it, which has bitten me a couple of times, which is why I think I've learned that lesson to kind of start to read people a little bit more, give my trust maybe a little
Mhm.
bit less intensely right up front. But the more you learn about yourself and the more you're willing to try new things, go out of your comfort zone, build relationships with people who are going to be mutually beneficial. There's value added both ways. That's where you really start to trust your gut because you have the experiences to back it up. And the only way that you're going to be able to say whether it was a good or a bad decision to trust your gut is to go through with the process. And you're always learning. There's no failure in that process. There's only learning and growth.
I love that. That was a great tip. I went with my gut on that one. I knew that that would be a
Mhm.
good conversation. So I wanted to share the make an impact tip with Corey. We forget so many things that it's helpful to write down or journal what's important to learn and grow, or even inspire our writing later. And as we talked about, there were things that you had written down that you had read in books. Were there parts of your personal story that you had written down? Did you journal about that sort of thing and then come back and use that later in the book?
Yeah, so you'll see I started doing this when I realized that I wanted to impact people with what I had to say and the stories that I had learned and the lessons that I had read about. So in the book, it'll say quote from an author, concept, tip, it will say personal story. So in my little diamond book, I have kind of like an outline of what is this thing I'm about to write down. And so a lot of the things will be, those 3 a.m. you sit up in bed and you're like, oh my God, I got to remember to tell someone about this.
Yeah.
So I have another notebook next to my bed where I'm writing these things down. But it's funny, I actually did a podcast episode on this once because I found myself feeling like I wasn't growing fast enough. I wasn't doing things quick enough. My business wasn't progressing fast enough. And I looked back through a lot of different things that I had done and I just thought, look how far I've come. Like, look how far, even from the decision to work with you, Corey, to now it's launch day. Like, you can take that for granted. You can take
Yeah.
literally anything that you're doing for granted, and if you're not writing down what it is that you're doing, if you're not taking time to go back and look at where you started, that is where you're going to start to feel a little bit frustrated. So just make sure that whether it's social media and you're looking back on the memories for a smile or a burst of inspiration, whatever it might be, make sure that you're writing those things down.
Yeah, I do think it's important to do that and to make sure you're celebrating all of those wins. Year ago you would be really proud of where today you is. So I love that tip. Thank you. Um, and I was gonna say something else about that. Um, yeah, so anyway, so that was a great tip, thank you. I can't remember what I was gonna say, but I really appreciate you being on the show today. This was wonderful. We got to talk a little bit about taking intentional action. I wanted to show the book again real quick. Make sure you head over to Amazon or wherever you like to buy books and pick up a copy. The Amazon link is below here, so you can start taking intentional action in your life and start choosing where you're going and how you're reacting to things and start living the life you want to lead. So I think this is a wonderful book. Desiree, thank you for being on.
Thank you, Corey, for everything. I truly mean it.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to send Desiree back to the green room and we will wrap up. Well, thank you for joining me today for another episode of Page Turner Studio with Corey. Be sure you join me again next week. We are on every Wednesday at 7 a.m. Pacific or 9 a.m. Central, or if you're in the Pittsburgh area like me, 10 a.m. And I will be featuring another guest. So until then, have a Page Turner's Day. You can learn more about my services and products at auroracorealispublishing.com. Make sure to join me every week on the SWE Media Network YouTube channel and wherever you listen to podcasts.